Welcome to another episode of Wild and Well. Today I'm talking to children's mental health fitness coach, as well as founder of Mindfully, which we're going to get into today. So stay tuned. Natalie Von Teichman. We're going to be talking all about mental fitness for our children. So welcome, Natalie. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. But before we get into all those things, can you tell us one thing that you've done to take care of yourself today?
Oh, I had the most beautiful fall walk with my dog this morning. It's my thing. If I wake up in the morning, getting outside, and I actually to myself this morning thought, do I go into my home gym and should I lift a couple of weights or should I go outside and walk? And I don't know, I made the right decision, like going out and just connecting. It sounds so kind of, hokey, but connecting with nature is really nice and the way the leaves are. And I actually ran into a friend and we had a quick chat and we know how important community is. So that was really nice for me this morning.
What a nourishing, what a nourishing way to start your day. That sounds just incredible.
Yeah, we have a ravine right by our house and I just can drop right in. And with the leaves right now, and it's a full sunny day with not a cloud in the sky, and
Mm.
it's just so good. Love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there today. I went for a walk this morning too, on my way home from the gym, and it's just, oh, it's so
Yeah.
nice. You
Yeah,
appreciate this weather so much when you have the beautiful days.
totally. Yep.
So can you share a little bit about yourself and all the things that you do?
Yeah. Well, I always like to describe myself as, the things that I do, like doing and being, because I think we kind of clump them together, especially as mothers, the things we do and the things we are. But I really like to separate them because it helps other people sort of see two different sides of us. And so the things that I do is that I am a mother of four. My husband and I have four boys. And we always laugh because we had two boys and then thought maybe we might have a girl on the third time around and had twin boys. And so that was really shocking, but amazing. And I'm a founder of Mindfully, which is a business that supports parents and children around, how to be more mindful, how to be connection and meditation and mental fitness, which we'll talk about later. And I'm a kids help phone crisis responder. I've done that in the past. We work quite closely with kids help phone, and I'm a very type of busy person. I do like to jog. I like to be outside. I like to exercise. So those are some of the things that I do. But then the person that I am is that I am very passionate about what I do. I tend to be a thoughtful person. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So one of the reasons I got into meditation and mindfulness is that my brain actually isn't somebody who wakes up in the morning and is zenned out. That's not who Natalie Von Teichman is. I'm actually somebody who runs pretty hot in terms of wanting to multitask and get a lot done. So when I saw the benefits of how I can slow down and pull back a little bit, it was really mind blowing for me, and that's why I got into what I'm doing. Is I wanted to teach it to my children. So that's a little bit about me, I suppose.
I like that you differentiate that because it is, we often do talk about like what we do and what our titles are and things like that. But who we are is also really important. And it really fits in with the work that you do, right? With being it's all about mindfulness and presence
I
because we are
sometimes
human
do this.
beings.
It's so true. And I sometimes do when I've done my talks, this exercise for people where they have to have a pen and paper, and you have your pen and paper, and we do this thing going between the doing and the being. And as mothers, we tend to sort of get really all uber focused in the being, and we're doing our to-do list and we're checking everything off and it feels amazing. And so I have people write their to-do list as fast as they can, and then when I say be, they put their pen and paper down, they close their eyes, and they just sort of breathe and be present and feel their feet grounded on the floor. And then we go back to do, and we pick up our pen again and our pencil and we start feverishly writing. And then we go back to be, and we kind of go back and forth into these two different states, 4 or 5 times. And it's really interesting to see the way that you feel in your body and how you connect differently. And then it also illustrates how important it is to be able to go in between those two states multiple times in a day, because that's life and that's what it's all about. So, it's not about being one single way or the other. It's about being agile.
Yeah, we're human beings and we do things, right? It's
Yeah,
both. That's such a clear way to see that difference of just being and then doing and then being and doing. And it
totally.
is about having that flexibility to switch between the two, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So important.
So, what is mental fitness? Can we go into a little bit about this and why is this important for our children?
Yeah, I mean, I love the term mental fitness because I think we hear mental health all the time. We hear the word mental health, mental health. We need to have better mental health. And I think we've heard it so much that people are starting to almost like zone out when they hear it. And it's important. I mean, that's what we saw through COVID is mental health. Our mental health is really important. But I like the term mental fitness because here's why. We as parents understand physical fitness because we grew up with this concept of we need to have physical fitness. We need to get out and ourselves, we need to move our bodies, and for our children, we need to put them in it doesn't even have to be organized sports, but we know we need to go to the park so they can run and play, and they need to go outside and play with their friends. So the reason I like mental fitness is because I like to compare the two together. And I had this aha moment when I started my business. And I was thinking to myself, as a parent, we spend all this time and money teaching our kids about physical fitness. And it's so important. Like, we need to do this because we need to help them exercise their cardiovascular system and their musculoskeletal. And we know all the benefits of physical fitness. But we wouldn't put our child, let's say, in a game of, let's say, baseball, because the Blue Jays just lost and that was a little tricky. And maybe we don't want to talk about that, but we'll say it. You wouldn't put your child in a game of baseball if you had never taught them how to practice hitting the ball or how to practice catching the ball. You'd practice it before the game time. And even with education, you would never give a child a test on fractions or multiplication before they actually practiced the content before the test. But with mental stuff, we tend to wait till there's a meltdown, a stressful situation, an anxiety, whatever it is, and then we react because we haven't spent any time practicing it. So when I talk about mental fitness, I'm trying to find ways that we can proactively practice how to build our mental muscles like we build our physical muscles when we're going to play baseball or soccer or run in the park or whatever it is, like we build our, educational, mathematical, whatever it is, whatever you're doing in school for the test time. We want to do that when it comes to mental fitness. And so mental fitness can also, under that big umbrella, it can have mental agility, mental flexibility, mental strength. And so these are all things that we do with physical fitness. We have physical agility, physical flexibility, physical strength. And to give you, an example of those two things, I like to, as I said, I like to compare them. Physical agility would be, you're on a tennis court and you're being physically agile because you're moving back and forth multiple times, on the court. Mental agility would be, for example, being able to sort of put yourself in a situation where you can go in and out, what you and I talked about earlier, the being versus doing, going in and out of those states multiple times a day. So a child's having a meltdown, how do they recover from it? That might mean there's a meltdown later on in the afternoon. How do they recover? How fast do we go in and out? When it comes to physical flexibility, that's like, for example, doing yoga. Sometimes when we're doing yoga, we stretch just to that point where it's kind of uncomfortable, never sore, but uncomfortable. With mental flexibility, I would say an example of that would be maybe a loving kindness meditation or story where you're thinking about somebody who's kind of upset you and made you, done you wrong, and you're sort of trying to mentally sort of send a little bit of loving kindness to them. You're sort of trying to stretch yourself mentally a bit. And of course, with, all of these things are building more physical strength or mental strength. So that's why I like to call it mental fitness, because then it helps us realize that we need to practice this proactively, just like we practice physical fitness and proactively.
Yeah, I really like how you frame that because you're absolutely right. Like we use the words mental health, but yet we often even have that mean poor mental health. Like we can
Yeah.
even just use those terms. So I like to use mental wellness. I do use mental health occasionally, but it is nice to have a different term. And I think that comparison to physical fitness is so tangible and it almost gives you more ability to like know what to do to help practice, like you're saying with those examples, to have that agility and that flexibility. Because mental health, people they don't practice, do they? Until we are having a meltdown ourselves or our kids are, or whatever the big situation is. And we can't use those skills if we don't have them because that frontal cortex shuts down when we're having those big emotions or when our kids are having them. And it's more like survival. But if we've built up those skills and we have that agility, we can access it so much easier, can't we?
Yeah, we know where to go. I mean, I often say when a child, when you say to your child, calm down, take a deep breath. They're children, especially nowadays, with all of everything that's going on, they've got a million and one things coming at them. They're kind of looking at you going, what do you mean? You haven't taught me. I have no idea what you're talking about. What does calm down, take a deep breath mean? I never get the chance to calm down and take a deep breath because, we're going a million miles an hour. And so I think it's really important to help kids practice. If we say calm down, take a deep breath, okay, before the actual stressor, or if you want to compare it to physical fitness, the game time, before it's game time for needing that mental performance, we need to help set them up for success by practicing it. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying, adding another thing to your list of 7 million things you have to do. As a mother of four, I get it. Life is crazy. But there are simple little things that we can start doing to help normalize and open the conversation and start just making this something that we just talk about.
And how do you talk about it with your kids? Is it similar to what you're saying here, like talking about it in that comparison to baseball or soccer?
Yeah, kids are really smart. Like, you could say to them, it's funny, I had one of my sons came home the other day from a play date. And because we talk about this stuff, it was so interesting. I said, "How was your play date? What'd you guys do?" And he said, "Well, Mom, I really realized after we talked about what they did, we went and do da 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 da." And he said, Mom, it was so interesting. I really noticed that because this play date had two brothers. One brother tends to be more mentally strong, and the other is more physically strong. And you have these conversations about what does that mean? And part of it is just talking to them about it, communicating it, normalizing it. And one thing we can do as parents that I think is super cool is if your child's out there and they play in a soccer game, of course and they score a goal. Of course, we're yay, at the end of the game, oh, Susie, you scored that goal. You did such a good job. You came around the side. And I'm not huge. I don't know a lot about soccer. I don't know why I even used soccer as an example. But, I know what a goal is in soccer. So, you did such a good job. So we praise our children for the physical achievements that they do. They come home from school and Mom, I got this on my test. Oh, amazing. Like, I'm so glad good for you. Good work. And we still need to do these things. I'm not saying we shouldn't. Obviously, we need to be, to show our children that we care. But when it comes to mental stuff, we don't tend to have these conversations, and children will look to us for that attention, and children will look to us for that positive reinforcement. So if we're not able to show them that it matters to us, then it's not really going to matter to them. And
Mhm.
the reason why we're not able to show them that it matters to us is we didn't grow up with this. So it's not our fault. I'm not sitting here saying, if you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. We don't think about it. We don't know this. And so what I'm trying to do is help parents sort of realize you have this really amazing opportunity to impact your child. It's like we're forgetting 50% of the child. Like there's that physical side, but we've got a whole huge massive side of being able to support our children, that when we do it in that case, we are giving them lifelong skills that they can grow with. We're giving them coping skills, not just to get through a meltdown because, they weren't allowed to stay up for all, like, 19 innings of the Blue Jays game the other night. It's more about when they're older and they're in a really stressful situation, like a heartbreak or, whatever it is. We've all gone through these things in our lives. How do they cope? How do they get through? And what are the skills that they need to have in their toolbox? And a lot of the skills when it comes to mental fitness, the basic stuff is really, really simple and is most of the time can be free. So, or things that we have with us. So I think, there's a really neat opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's that a lot of us, like, we didn't learn that. Our generation didn't tend to learn that things. In schools, they're teaching more of this, but we need to embody it ourselves. And I find having kids, like, I'm a psychologist, I know lots of the techniques, but that doesn't mean you always apply it. But having kids makes me have to apply it because you see the impact of your own nervous system being dysregulated on them, and you don't want to recreate those patterns in your children. And I do find it is a lot more motivating to do the things with kids. So, because you want to help them. And if you can, say, do a breathing technique or talk to them about what's going on for them, it teaches ourselves too, right? We can learn alongside them. And I think that's really the easiest way to do it. Like, why
I,
add two extra things? Add one extra thing, right?
I totally agree. This is actually, we know when we teach, we learn. Like if you look at whatever you're teaching, my one older son was teaching my younger son the other night. We're learning a different language, and he's teaching the younger son the language and helping him. And as he said to me after, he's like, "Mom, this is actually amazing because I'm learning more. Even though I'm teaching, I'm actually learning, right? We're reinforcing those concepts." And so when it comes to, understanding about coping skills and mental fitness, we have this great opportunity where it's not like we have to go and, okay, we have to become experts in learning how to be mindful and, go be crazy meditators. And like, no, no, no. It just is, let's learn alongside each other, let's,
Mhm.
and as we do that, I'll give you an example. With four boys, we tend to, my boys are busy and there's no shortage of, band-aids in our house and bloody noses and things like this, just by virtue of the fact that they're very busy and active. And that's great. And the other day, one of my twins they were playing in the basement and they were playing mini sticks, the little mini stick games. And one of them got hit right across the forehead with a mini stick. And it hit him so hard that the mini stick actually cracked in half. And so, you hear the scream. And as a mother of four, even a mother of whatever, doesn't matter. As a mother, you get to know the screams that are the ones you're going to go for, or the ones that you're like, maybe I'm going to let them work it out. And that's part of us being mindful of our reaction, right? We have to understand what is our reaction in a stressful situation? How do we react? Because the way we react, they are going to role model that exactly. So if we get upset about them freaking out about stuff, well, how are you reacting in this situation? So I always take a quick beat, but I knew after that quick beat that this was one that I probably needed to go and attend to. So as I go downstairs, I'm looking at my twin son, and you can see a goose egg. Literally, it was like those old cartoons you used to watch where the one guy would hit the guy on the head with like a, hammer, and the goosebump would go, "Brrr," grow out like in 1 second out of the head. And I'm watching this goosebump just grow out of his head. And in that moment, I think he looked at my eyes, and I think I probably couldn't even for a second, control, because I went, "Oh my gosh." And for a second I forgot how to react because it was so woo. And he looked at me and he said, "Mummy, just take deep breaths. It's going to be okay." And this is my 10-year-old twin. And I went, "Oh, yeah, right. Good point." So both of us, in that moment are breathing, and then you assess the situation and everything's okay. It really goes back to basic, like, you know, emergency responder, even when you want to look into like breathing, and we can talk about breathing shortly, but I think breath work and breathing is like absolutely a magic tool that is free, that we don't think enough about. But even the Navy SEALs, under times of extreme stress, do box breathing. I mean, it was invented by a Navy SEAL. So, I think it's really important in these situations for us as parents to learn alongside our kids. And when our
Yeah.
kids can say to us, hey, mommy, remember, take a deep breath. You're winning, I think, because it's like, wow, they have got it. And when they're little, this is the best time to teach them, because this is when they're developing all those, the neural pathways are connecting. We're building the house, right? It's foundational building. Later on, that's when the shutters and all of the paint come on. But what are we, when we're building the foundation? What are some of the things we're putting into that foundation to keep it really sturdy and solid? And this is the time when we can help them start understanding about building their mental fitness.
And what are some of those pieces of the foundation? Like breathing is one of them. What are some of your other go-to strategies to teach your kids to build that foundation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan, and it's not like I'm one of those people who does crazy breath work. And I think breathing actually is really simple. I think it's teaching a very simple being able to inhale and then exhale a little longer than your inhale. I think it's about practicing in situations that aren't extreme catastrophic situations. And when you do, I think co-regulation is really important. So if your child is melting down, they're freaking out, just holding them and regulating your breath to them. So they will, in time, if you just stay still, we don't freak out, we don't react. Co-regulation with a breath is really magical. It also, in that moment, is helping you stay calm. It's teaching them what it feels like, and even saying to them, I had the other day, this is going to sound so crazy, but my boys hate having their nails clipped. They hate it because I think I've had a couple times where I've, gone a little too deep, and they're like, "Oh, mom, please don't, cut them too short." So my one son really hates it. And the other day we were, doing the nail clipping situation, and he said, "Oh, mommy, he's kind of like squeamish, you know?" And I said to him, "Wait, I have an idea. Try right now to just take some deep breaths. It's so cool. It's so cool to see what happens." Because he was almost like shaky and squeamish and not able to almost control himself because he was really nervous about this. And he started doing it. He started staying calm. And I said, "Okay, let's like keep doing it." And I was going, "Yes, you're doing great." And all of a sudden, he said to me, "Mom, that's actually crazy. It's actually crazy how much I can calm down when I take deep breaths." So coming to other things in a moment, I just do want to mention that because I think to me, it is unbelievably impactful on children. And what we're doing, just to get a little deeper in that situation, is we're helping the body, the brain, go from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. And that sort of sympathetic is that fight or flight. And I know that you know all of this stuff and what you do, but it is that, fight or flight, very panic state, to being able to go over to the parasympathetic, which is sort of that rest and digest. And I always compare it to, if you think about a car, and a car that's driving down the street, and it's a car that is a standard car where you have to gear shift it. When you're driving down that street multiple times from, point A to point B, you have to switch gears from gear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and back down again. And the way that we do this in a car easy and smoothly is by making sure that the gear oil in a car is there. The gear oil is there so we can smoothly go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and back down again multiple times. When it comes, I like to think of your breath like the gear oil in a gear shifter in a car. So the breath is actually, if we have that breath and we're able to harness it, we can switch back and forth smoothly multiple times into that sympathetic and that parasympathetic, that stress and that non-stress, that doing and that being. If we have an understanding, a simple, simple understanding of how to use the breath and come back to the breath, that is like the gear oil in the ability to go back and forth. So I do just want to touch on that because I think the breath is very, very important. In terms of
Yes.
other things we can do, communicate, talk to your child, talk to them about this. Like, say to them, "Hey guys, uh you have your physical fitness and your mental fitness, and what do you think the difference is? What do you think that means? What do you think, like, let's talk about mental agility versus physical agility. Let's have these conversations. Kids, it depends on the age of your child. But kids even over the age of 6 will start understanding these concepts. Even maybe 5, you make it in a very simple way. So I think the communication piece is a really, really important piece, how we talk to our kids. And then the only other thing I will touch on is, we talked about it before, is role modeling. And so, it's hard. We have so much that we're juggling and doing, but just taking a moment, and a really good time to do it is at bedtime or when you're walking your kids home from school. When you're walking them home from school, don't be on your phone and be on your phone while you're walking them home from school. Put your phone in your pocket and talk to them. How was your day? Be present with your kids. That that really makes them feel safe and makes them feel heard. And if you think about yourself, if you're at a party and you're talking with someone and all of a sudden that person starts looking behind you, oh, who's coming in the door? Who's here? You're like, oh, like I guess they're not interested in me anymore. So we have to really think about how are our kids viewing us? If we want them to go off the screens and we want them to turn off the video game, to just walk up and turn it right off. What if you were watching your favorite show of, I don't know, what are people watching right now? Maybe the only thing that's coming to my mind is The Bachelor, and I think I've never watched it. I don't know why I'm thinking The Bachelor. But if you're watching that and that's your favorite show and it's right almost near the end and someone comes in and turns the TV off, it's like, whoa, like give kids a 5 minute, hey guys, warning, hey guys, can we just finish up what we're doing? It's trying to stay in that gray zone versus the extreme black or white. And I think that's where we want to be. Because if we're asking our kids to be that way, we need to make sure we're trying to be that way ourselves.
Yeah, role modeling is so powerful, isn't it? And you can see it in your children, especially when they're young. I mean, for a number of years, because we are their role models and we are how they understand the world. It's through what we do. That's just what's normal. Whatever we do is what people do in their mind. They don't realize that other people do things differently. So it can be really powerful. And it can be a bit daunting, like saying that. It's like, whoa, that's a lot of pressure on us parents. And we don't have to be perfect in that. I think it's just about being aware and doing, like, thinking about that and thinking, how do I want them to be? How do I want them to respond in these situations? Okay, how can I practice that myself? And a lot of the work I do is focusing on helping mothers take care of themselves. And a lot of the time they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to that after this, after whatever I'm dealing with my kids. But like that is foundational. You have to do the things because your kids are always watching. So it's so much easier if you can work on your breath. Like I love that example that you gave, that just hug them and breathe yourself. You don't even have to talk to them about it, but you doing it does so much. And then you're in such a better state, and so are they. So like everything with parenting gets easier if you focus on yourself and your role modeling.
I totally agree. And I mean, when they're little, it's that sort of what we do when they're little. The term maybe isn't right, short-term pain for long-term gain, because it's not pain, but it is that setting the tone,
Mhm.
and it's setting the tone for them. And I think you make such a good point, Hillary, about not putting pressure on ourselves to be perfect. I think there's a really important distinction between trying to be a perfect parent. Nobody's perfect. And I actually think, in fact, we all are going to have moments where we're going to be upset. We're going to lose it. We're going to, yell or have a moment. And it's not about not ever having those moments. It's about how do it's almost like the refractory period after that moment. What do we, showing that, we come to our breath, or we have a moment where we're upset about something, like showing kids that, we can have emotions. I love that now after COVID, I really think it opened up our world to talk about our emotions more. Talk about how you're feeling. I feel this, I feel that, naming emotions with colors and all these things. Where I like to step in is say, okay, it's great you've named your emotion. It's great you're there. But then what? What after that? So the reason I like to talk about mental fitness is it's like, okay, we feel sad. Okay, let's feel sad. But now what? What do we do after we feel sad? And how do we get through that? What do we talk? And so I think there's a really important step that comes after naming our emotions that helps us build resilience.
Mhm.
And it's that resilience piece that I think sometimes gets lost in this generation, because what's happening is children are, unfortunately, sometimes can be a little dependent on the phone, or dependent on always calling for help and not always being able to do these things themselves. And an example I can give around that is, when I was little and I would go out and ride my bike, I might fall off my bike and I might cut my knee open, and it would be really uncomfortable and not feel good. And back in the day, I had to sort of come up with a strategy of what I was going to do. Okay, I've cut my knee, I've fallen off my bike. Do I go to a neighbor's house? Do I limp home with tears streaming down my face and a bleeding knee? What do I do? And unfortunately, nowadays it seems to be that, children would just pull out their phone and call mom, help. What do I do? And so what I'm trying to do is help children step past that and learn more about how to build their own self-awareness and their own resilience skills. And we're there to help them do that. But we're not there, and this takes the pressure off us being perfect. We're also not there to sort of like fix everything. We don't have to fix everything. We can let them be uncomfortable for a hot second. We can let them search for their coping skills. And we're taught when our babies are little, they're crying, figure it out, feed them, change their diaper, do something right away, alarms going off. And it's hard to get that out of us. It's such an
Yeah.
instinctual thing. But when we can let our children kind of be uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable for us too. So we're learning. That goes back to what you and I were talking before about learning at the same time our children are learning. We're learning as parents that when they're uncomfortable, it's okay to kind of sit in that. It's really uncomfortable for us too, but we're both learning together what are the coping skills to get through those moments.
Yeah, that's such an important point. And it is great that we're more aware of identifying our emotions. That's very important. But like you say, there's that other step. And it's interesting. This is a conversation I've been having a lot recently that we are in our generation forgetting that there's something else. There's that, okay, letting our kids learn how to sit in that distress and build up their distress tolerance and problem solve. What do I do next? And do all those things. That is sometimes missing because we are so accessible and we are around a lot, or like you say, there's a phone, there's always something to help them, which is useful, but not always. Like they need to build that skill as well. And that's such a critical piece. How, like, can you tell us now a little bit about how you use all this in the work that you do, in this business that you have created, in this really cute stuffy that you have created? Like, how did
Yeah,
that
I
come to
mean,
be from this?
it's a crazy story because it starts back in mid-February of 2020. And I became the 29th person in Canada to be diagnosed with COVID-19. And at the time, I it was so new, Hillary, that I mean, the world over here in Canada, we weren't even the world hadn't even shut down. I think things shut down in what was it, like March, like mid March. And so I was full month before with a phone call from Health Canada after being at the hospital in Toronto, getting tested, and them saying, "You're the 29th person in all of Canada to have COVID. Like, you're going to be locked in your room." So I was locked in my room for 11 days. I did not even open the door. And I did not leave my bedroom. And then my subsequently, when I did leave, we had doctors coming to our house and in hazmat suits, like ET styles, and walking into the home, very nerve-wracking for my children who didn't see me for 11 days, knowing that mommy's sick in her room. I'm at the time went from being a very active, vivacious mother of four to being someone who was completely paralyzed under the weight of anxiety, locked in my room and not knowing, we talk about physical. My passion between physical fitness and mental fitness is truly I could not get over COVID-19 physically because mentally I was in a massive panic state. I was in fight or flight to the next level. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And, we'd get reports of people are really not doing well with COVID. And I thought, is that going to be me? And the doctors didn't know. Nobody really knew back then. And so it was very scary. And I remember as I started to recover physically, my mind just wouldn't come. And I started this daily meditation group with a group of friends. They reached out to me. They said, Nat, why don't you start doing this? And it honestly became my lifeline. I started doing it. I just went all in because I couldn't get outside and go for that walk like I talked about this morning in nature. I couldn't connect in ways that I'd done in the past. And I realized that I had never really been taught mental fitness skills. I hadn't been taught how to really cope when things really hit the wall. And so I started just breathing and connecting into myself. And I remember looking at my boys in the backyard jumping on our trampoline and thinking, I have to teach my kids skills. Like, I have to teach them. We've been so focused on putting them in hockey and tutoring and blah, 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 blah. But what are we doing on this part of them? Like, how am I supporting them? And so as time went on I came out of my bedroom, I came out of hiding, and actually we were locked in our house for 29 days. And funny story, the day we actually were able to leave the house, my we went for a family walk, and my eldest son fell off his bike and broke his arm. And so we went right into sick kids. And there was all these things that kind of kept happening, and I just kept coming back to that mindfulness practice. And so the reason I thought about Tate and the reason I even started this is I started getting my boys to listen to. There's some really amazing apps online that help support children around sleep stories and feeling calm. There's some incredible stuff out there. We talk about content and the internet always being the bad guy, but actually I think there's some really great, if we have it in the proper delivery method, there's some really great things that we can do to help support our children when it comes to digital tech. And I, so anyways, I decided what I would do is get my boys to start doing these little meditations with me. But what I found is they always wanted to look at the phone because the phone was there, it was playing off the phone or the iPad or the computer. And when kids see a device, it's like they're like, squirrel. They just are stuck to it. So I thought, oh, I've got to get this device out of the room, but I want to get this content into them. What do I do? And I noticed all my boys loved their plush stuffies. They love them. So I thought, well, what if I put a little child-friendly speaker inside of the plush toy? And the toy actually speaks to the child by guiding them on different content stories that are unique to them, but they're actually coming from this toy. This toy is actually talking to them and taking them on these little adventures inside their body to learn more about my your inside, your heart, your soul, your brain, and your imagination was the most important thing for me. And so that's what I did. I actually looked online to find it and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find anything. So, like all of us in COVID, we all were starting businesses, inventing things, making banana bread and doing all of the stuff. I just started this business and I made a couple of them for my boys. I have a couple of friends who are child life therapists, and I gave some to them and said, "Can you guys do a little group with me and see what your kids think?" And everybody said to me, "Natalie, you need to do this. This is my child's finally sleeping. You need to get going." So I did, and so we developed a little plush puppy named Meditate, or Tate for short. And Tate has four little paws that have shapes on them. And the shapes help teach children about shape trace breathing. So box breathing, infinity eight, star. There's a little heart on Tate's chest that has a material that retains essential oils really well. So if you want to, you can add a child-friendly essential oil. We were working with a company called doTERRA for a bit, which is we still do. And then in the speaker, there's a little headphone jack so children can listen with their headphones on or without. It can play out loud. And the way it works is you basically have your device, you go onto the app or the library, and you pick there's tons of different categories. There's adventures, there's breathing, there's learning, there's just plain music. There's so many different things, hundreds of minutes of content, and you press play and it plays through Tate, and the phone leaves the room. There's a 30-foot range. You shut the door. There is no device in sight, and your child is cuddling with Tate, and Tate is telling them a bedtime story or a nap time story, or the things we hear from our customers are truly what keeps me going, because it's really amazing how it's making an impact.
I could imagine that being really nice for parents to sit down or lie down with their kid and listen along. And like we were talking before about how we need to learn alongside our kids. What a great way to just be guided in that process rather than be the parent always feeling like I need to be the guide. I need to have this figured out.
Totally. When we first started, I remember one parent in particular reached out because she said to me, "I love the Magic Treehouse story because when I was listening to it with my son, I like you as a parent, like we all still have our inner child inside of us, you know? So we're listening and in the Magic Treehouse series, it's about, you visualize. There's a lot of visualization, a lot of imagination. And there's a Magic Treehouse door, and Tate asked the child, "What color is your door?" "I can see it because I'm a part of you." And sort of, it prompts these really amazing connection between the puppy and the child. But I remember this parent reaching out to me and saying, "My Magic Treehouse door was red and it felt so calming." And so, we even launched a category called Me and My Grown Up, where Tate is actually there with your grown up, and it's more of an active versus a calming activity. And Tate is giving you choices between, would you rather, you know, fly on a spaceship to the moon or fly underneath the sea to the deep, like giving different choices, and you are discussing it with your child, and Tate's leading it. And it's really neat. When we launched this, I found myself sitting on a board that actually launched out of the United States, and it was called the Mesh Toy group. And MESH stands for mental, emotional, and social health. And this was launched as a response to COVID-19 when we were looking at the rates of anxiety skyrocketing in children. And the toy industry, who traditionally, had been talking a lot about STEAM or STEM toys, which stand for science, technology, arts, and math, very important still. This isn't to take over that group, but they said we need to come up with, an accreditation or a way that we can put a stamp on these toys that help support children's mental, emotional, and social health. So Tate actually became, and still is the very first global mesh accredited meditation and mindfulness plush toy in the world. And we did the accreditation. It's a very intense 3 month, send a whole bunch of different samples in. They go through all of it with a fine tooth comb, and you get back this unbelievable report on how your toy or whatever it is helps support children. And some of the rubric is around not just helping your kid feel calm. It's actually about, how does this help a child develop more perseverance? How does it help them develop more resilience, more self-awareness? And one of the things is around storytelling. One of them is around spending more time with your grown-up. One of them is around a toy that provides a situation where children can start at a level and start progressing, like more difficulty. So that's that perseverance piece. That's that, okay, I've gotten to here, and now I've got to do something. It could even be in a board game. You can have a mesh accredited board game where you're having to kind of, what I talked about earlier, stretch that brain, a little more mental agility, a little more mental flexibility. And that's what builds all those things like perseverance and resilience. And, we, out of that, we're able to create some really cool things within our content for Mindfully. One of them is our series on the magic staircase, where, children tend to want to go from 0 to 10 right away. And the idea is, actually, if you take the time and you step on each different stair from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you could actually see something different at every different step. So if we skip past all the steps, we'll miss all those things that happen on the stairs in between step 1 to 10. And so it's helping sort of children understand the process, right? That just because we're not good at something right away doesn't mean we give up. There's always a journey. And these are little things that we can do with the content, which makes Tate a really unique toy, in that we're combining the sort of classic comfort of a cuddle toy with the science and sort of subtlety of digital tech, but in a way that makes it create a feelings of safety and connection, and it keeps children engaged, which is a really important thing we need to do.
Yeah, it sounds like such a incredible toy. I definitely want to get one, like for my kids, but really for myself, let's be
Yeah.
honest. Where do you see your business going? Like if you look ahead 5, 10 years, do you have other ideas of projects or ways that you're going to build on Tate?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I told you earlier in our conversation that I'm not someone who's like a innately zenned out human being. So, I definitely, as a female, not a female founder, any founder, doesn't matter. I've been doing a lot of female founder stuff lately, but as a founder, it doesn't matter who you are. You can have, I call it like shiny object syndrome, where it's like I said before, like squirrel, squirrel, you go towards different things because you have this extreme passion, and you see the difference that it's making. I mean, Hillary, oftentimes as busy people in our in this world, we don't reach out to a company after we purchase something unless the thing we purchased is broken or it doesn't work. And I can tell you that in the case of Mindfully and our little Meditate puppy, we've literally received hundreds of unsolicited messages from parents saying, you know, my child hasn't slept in 3 months and they finally slept with Tate. I just want to thank you. Or, a mother whose child was in the oncology wing at McMaster Hospital who said, Mommy, we need to get a Tate puppy for every child in the oncology wing. Or, a high functioning athlete who was able to calm himself down after being pushed off the racetrack and actually held his own hand up and started box breathing with his own hand. And when his mom asked him, she said, "Where did you learn that from?" And he said, "Well, from Tate. Tate taught me." And she said, I have to tell you." And so, I get these stories that come to me and I think, how do I keep building this and blowing this out into something that can really help support kids? So, your question about where do I want to go with it? I mean, we want to keep building the content. We want to keep the content relevant to what's going on in everyday life. So if there's, forest fires like there were 2 years ago, we create content around eco anxiety. So we want to keep our content really relevant. So we will be committed to doing that. And we work with different therapists and communication experts and probably a lot of people like yourself who are very experienced in this space to help. I do a lot of research around reaching out to people who work specifically with children every single day and what are the concerns because they're changing. They're always changing. So that's really important to us, the content. In terms of the actual puppy itself, we have some really interesting ideas around how to uh, update our breathing and how to help children really understand what that means, what that feels like. We'd like to have a whole little uh, litter. I call it, when people buy multiple Tates, it's a litter of Tate, but we'd like to have a whole group of animals. And I have my names already picked out. And so also updating the language so that Tate can be a global wellness companion. Right now, we have Tate is mostly in English. We did launch a French category, La Méditation Française, and that is not that is done by somebody else because unfortunately I was okay in French in school, but definitely not good enough to be able to support creating all the content there. So we work with some really great people there. And then my goal would be though to be able to have Tate in multi languages and be able to support kids all over. And then lastly, I really want to start to expand working with different businesses and companies, to help bring more awareness. We do a collaboration, charitable wise. We work with Ronald McDonald House Maritimes. We've done stuff with children's hospitals in the States, in Canada, child life therapy. So we have a lot of different angles to go on. So we could probably just do a podcast on how I want to grow this, but I those are some of the sort of top level things. But I'm always one thing I will say, because I know you have a great community and a great listener base, is that I am always interested in speaking with people about how we can help get this to more children and children who may not necessarily be able to afford Tate, but some who can. And just any child deserves Tate. Any family deserves Tate. It can be so life changing that my goal is to just get it out there. So anyone who can help me do that, I will make so much time for always. And so, yeah.
Yeah, while you were speaking there, I even thought like this would be great in daycares and in schools. And I know schools are so burdened with like just not enough resources that it would be so incredible if teachers are feeling overwhelmed with having to deal with like behavioral issues or various things going on. This could be something that other kids could use, or those kids that are having a really hard time. That could be in that corner that where the trampoline is, and if they're lucky enough to have like the calming swing and all those things. It would be so nice to have something like this in the classroom.
We actually have created a school curriculum around Tate time because we know that when kids are dysregulating and they go to the detention room, it doesn't always work so well. So, how do we start teaching kids these concepts? And we're actually putting together a group where we can actually go into schools and do little 1 hour sessions that would finish with a Tate puppy to stay in the classroom. But there was a stat. There was, I think, the stats from the it was the annual Ontario School Survey in 2023, 2024 said that something like 95% of principals in Ontario specifically are reporting that children need more supports. They need more supports. And we know this. I mean, this isn't something that we don't know. But, if you look even from a whole, if you look at the situation that we're dealing with right now, if you look in North America, let's say there's around 40 million kids that are between the ages of 4 and 12. 1 in 3 of them have sleep issues. 1 in 12 are clinically diagnosed with anxiety. And, 38% of parents are saying, my child is feeling emotionally distressed and overwhelmed. And oftentimes these numbers actually are underreported because parents will wait and say, maybe it's just a, well, I don't know. And how do you report that? And, these are the people that are really coming and reporting. So this is really something we need to deal with. And I just see there being so many different opportunities to help this little, like, I call Tate like the future of cuddles. How do we help um, children and parents and educators and medical professionals with a tool and a toy that will support these children in a unique way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much growth that could happen there. It's exciting that you are going in all these different directions. It's very needed.
I need to, though, when I'm going the directions, I have to keep coming back to my base because you step down one road, Hillary, and then you think, oh, but I've got to do that, but I've got to do this. And this is sort of, so oftentimes I'll tell you, I'm so grateful that I'm in an industry that's foundation is rooted in mindfulness because it's so important for me to walk the walk and talk the talk. And just like everyone else, I have times where I feel like so overwhelmed and that there's so much going on. And it's so important to be able to really tap into that mental, like I said before, agility, that mental strength to sort of say, just take a moment. Like, yes, Natalie, you could be sitting and filling out 7 million forms and doing all these things, but you need to put your computer down and be there with the kids or do whatever it is. It's really important because there is so much that I can do and that I'm excited about. So, part of all of that is me being here with you today. And I'm so grateful that you are speaking with me because it's people like you. I call people like you like seed planters, and it's like an apple tree. And so, when you're a seed planter, the seeds are planted and then the tree grows, and then it has apples that come on it, and people eat the apples. And so, this is sort of the cycle of how we grow new concepts and how we develop new things and help support other people. And so anytime I'm on a podcast, I thank you for being a seed planter for me because it's that's what makes it all work, right? That's how things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything that you wanted to mention here or you think would be really important for listeners to know that we didn't talk about?
Talked about a lot of stuff today. I feel like the most um I just I want to leave by saying, and finish the podcast by saying that this isn't about the idea of teaching our children about mental fitness isn't about creating more work. It's really the underlying thing is about communication and it's about being able to just understand the concepts. Sometimes, just learning a concept or even like I said, I go back to planting seeds, just planting seeds for children. Our child doesn't have to be nobody, none of us are being meditators where we're sitting in caves like they do in Tibet, zenning out. I mean, it's just not accessible in our everyday life. I think that we can, instead of going from being so scared about everything digital and social media, yes, it's scary. I'm a mom of four. It is there, and we are seeing the effects of it. But how do we look at it as, going from digital sort of overwhelm to digital resilience? Like, how do we learn to live in the environment that we're in versus running away from it? And it doesn't have to be complicated. And part of it is a lot of it is about planting those seeds. So I'm just grateful for whoever listened today. And I am grateful for you having me on here. And I would just like to say the last thing I'd like to say is that if anybody ever wants to reach out or learn more, I am always here to chat and love that.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you've created and coming on and talking about this. And I really like your concept of mental fitness. I might start using that myself because I think it's just such a really, really nice way of talking about these things in a way that we all can understand so well.
Yeah, and one more thing now that you're saying that, this is what happens to me. I like think of something else. But it's that idea that when we throw a ball, we're building our bicep, right? Our physical bicep. Or when we kick a ball, we're building the muscles in our legs. When we are exercising our mental fitness, like we're being okay with being bored, or we're taking deep breaths, or we're, whatever we're doing, we're listening to something. We're even using our imagination. Using our imagination is like is like doing bicep curls in the brain. It's like your brain inside your head. And sometimes when we're talking to kids, we need to be really mindful that we're speaking to them to what they understand, right? And so talking to them maybe about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system might get a little confusing. But how do we talk to them about, doing a deep breath is like doing, lifting a weight in, with your arm. It's like doing it in your brain. How do we bring this sort of discussion to the level of a child? And it all depends on your child, and you know your child the best. You know how your child is going to react. But I think that's a really important concept as well.
Yeah, we can tie it back to whatever sport or physical activity that they're doing. If they like climbing, tie it to that. If they like baseball, tie it to that.
Yeah, and when we do that, it actually shows that we care about what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to go and give my son an example about horseback riding because they don't horseback ride. But if I talk to him about hockey or soccer or, whatever it is, or Lego, one of my boys loves building Lego, how do we kind of come up with these analogies that it shows not only that we can help them understand a concept, but that we care. We notice what you're into. We hear you, we see you. We're here to learn with you and grow with you. And let's be okay with showing our vulnerabilities as a parent. Like, let's learn together, guys. Like, guess what? I didn't grow up with this. Let's learn this together, because it's actually it really works. I think once we start doing it, it really works. And when you do it yourself, when you use your breath to calm down, you look at your child and you say, whoa, that was crazy. Like, I was so stressed about something I just saw, and my breath, you guys should try that next time. And so we get animated about it and excited about it. It doesn't have to be boring. Just like we'd say, whoa, that goal was so good. Next time when you get out there, do that same move. Let's do that with mental fitness and show it that we're doing it ourselves, and then praise them when they do it. And I guarantee you it won't take that long. And all of a sudden, you are giving your child a coping skill for life. It's so cool.
It is, and it's showing that you don't have to be perfect, that we're not perfect, that
No,
adults don't have it all figured out, and
no
we are
way.
learning all the time as
Yeah,
well. I think that's really
totally.
important.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you and about Mindfully and about Tate? Tell us all
They
the
can,
places.
yeah. So mindfully is actually spelled MII. There's two I's, NDFULLY. And, someone said to me once, oh, there must be some crazy story behind that. And I was like, well, I tried to trademark mindfully with one eye and it wasn't available. So I just added two eyes, which kind of made it like kind of juvenile and kind of fun and like imaginative. And it's kind of like the brand. So you can have two eyes in mindfully, and that's all good. So it's www.mindfully.com. And we are on Instagram at Mindfully Meditate. We are, Pinterest, all the social channels. We're at Mindfully Meditate. And people can purchase or find Tate on our website. And I think we have a special code for all of the listeners today because, like I said, I'm very appreciative of your seed planting for me. And I'd love to be able to support your community. And the code, what did we discuss? Was it
It
again?
was Wild and Well 15.
Yes, Wild and Well 15. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes as well.
perfect. So yeah, that's where you can find us. And then in terms of, you can always reach out to us at info@mindfully.com, or you can find us DM in our Instagram. We like to get back, and please reach out. I love it. I love talking about this. I am a mother as well as a business founder, and I'm very passionate about this, and I love to support. And not only some of the things that when people have reached out to us, I'm always the first person to say when it's something I can handle, a question I can handle, or when I need to pass you on to someone else who, maybe it's a different level of professional support or whatever it is. I've created a really great community around me of therapists, of pediatricians, of child life therapists who can help support in many, many different ways. So I'm always happy to direct you as well in that way. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great to know because, yeah, I imagine that you do get a broad range of questions.
You do. And I don't profess myself to, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm definitely trained in all things meditation, children's meditation and mindfulness, and done a lot of courses, and have my training there, and graduated with all health science courses, and worked in a pharmaceutical company for many years, which I'm long gone from. But I definitely am very aware of the fact that it's important to be able to pass somebody on if there's certain questions that just need to be addressed in a different way. But I always will help. I always will help anybody who comes to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing and creating this little puppy and everything around mindfully. I can't wait to try it out myself and for my kids. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I appreciate it.